My wife's best friend moved in after escaping abuse, then started coming to my room undressed and kissing me when my wife was gone. My life, up until recently, was pretty normal. I'm a 33-year-old guy, happily married to my 31-year-old wife. We have a wonderful 3-year-old son who brings us so much joy. We're your average family, we both work, we love spending time together, and we're trying to raise our son to be a good person. My wife has this amazing best friend, Chloe, who's also 31. They've been close since they were kids, practically like sisters. They share everything, and I've always been happy that my wife has such a strong support system. About 6 months ago, Chloe's life took a really bad turn. She was dating this guy, David, who turned out to be incredibly controlling and abusive. At first, it was subtle things. He'd tell her what to wear, who she could hang out with, and even how to spend her own money. It escalated over time, and he started getting physically abusive. One night, it got really bad, and Chloe managed to escape and come to us for help. My wife and I didn't hesitate to take her in. We were horrified by what she was going through and wanted to do everything we could to support her. When Chloe first arrived, she was a mess. She was withdrawn, depressed, and couldn't even think about going back to work. She was carrying so much trauma from the abuse. My wife was incredible with her. She was patient, understanding, and created a safe space for Chloe to heal. Slowly but surely, Chloe started to get better. She began to smile again, started looking for a job, and even helped out around the house. It felt like she was finally starting to get her life back on track. Things were going pretty smoothly until this one Friday. It was a normal workday for my wife and me, and our son was at daycare. I had a doctor's appointment scheduled for that afternoon, so I ended up coming home early. I made myself some lunch and then went to my room to check some work emails. I was just sitting there, going through my inbox, when Chloe walked into the room. I was completely taken aback. She was only wearing her underwear and was topless. I froze, not knowing what to say or do. It was incredibly awkward. Chloe seemed just as shocked as I was. She stammered an apology and quickly explained that she needed to borrow some clothes because she hadn't done laundry. I just mumbled something in response, and she rushed out of the room. A few minutes later, she came back, fully dressed this time. She apologized again, and I told her to forget about it. I tried to act like it was no big deal, but honestly, I was pretty shaken up. The whole thing was just so unexpected and uncomfortable. Later that day, I started thinking about whether I should tell my wife. I was torn. On one hand, I felt like I should be honest with her, but on the other hand, I didn't want to cause any problems between her and Chloe. I also didn't want to make Chloe feel uncomfortable, especially since she was already going through so much. In the end, I decided to keep it to myself, at least for the time being. I kept the incident to myself for a few days, but it was really bothering me. I felt like I was keeping a secret from my wife, and it was starting to weigh on me. Finally, I decided I had to tell her. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I tried to bring it up casually. We were talking about something else entirely, and I just kind of slipped it into the conversation. I started by asking if Chloe had borrowed any clothes from her recently. My wife said no, and I said, "Oh, that's weird, because the other day she came into my room." And I told her what had happened. At first, I thought my wife was going to laugh it off. But then I saw her face. She froze, and her expression turned serious. She started murmuring something in Spanish, which she only does when she's really upset or thinking hard about something. I tried to downplay it, saying it was no big deal and that Chloe had just been flustered about the laundry. But my wife kept asking me questions, wanting more details. She wanted to know exactly what Chloe had said, how she had been acting around me when she was away, and all sorts of things. I told her everything, emphasizing that Chloe had been acting completely normal otherwise. But my wife wasn't convinced. She got really emotional and said I should have told her immediately. She then went and talked to Chloe about it, trying to make light of the situation and smooth things over. I was so confused. Why was she reacting this way? It was just an awkward incident, nothing more. I demanded an explanation, but she was hesitant to tell me. The more she avoided the question, the more suspicious I got. I was starting to get really frustrated and even threatened to ask Chloe directly if my wife wouldn't tell me what was going on. Finally, she broke down and told me something I never expected. She told me that before Chloe had started dating David, she had been involved with a married man, a much older coworker. Apparently, it had been a sugar daddy kind of relationship, and my wife suspected that Chloe had continued seeing this man even while she was with David. This explained why David had accused her of cheating. My wife admitted that she had been worried about Chloe's boundaries with married men, but now she wasn't so sure. I was angry. Angry that she had kept this from me for so long, angry that she had been judging Chloe, and angry that this whole situation was so messed up. The next morning was incredibly awkward. Knowing what I now knew about Chloe's past, the whole incident from the previous Friday took on a new meaning. And then, something happened that made things even weirder. Chloe came up to me and actually thanked me for not telling my wife about the incident right away. She said she was so relieved and gave me a hug. And then, she kissed me on the cheek. Now, normally, a kiss on the cheek from Chloe wouldn't be a big deal. We're all close, and it's something that happens sometimes. But after everything that had happened, it felt different. It felt off. I was incredibly uncomfortable. I started to wonder if there was more to Chloe's behavior than I had initially thought. Was she attracted to me? Was she trying to make a move? And what did my wife know? Was she covering for Chloe? Update 1. I was so angry at my wife for not being honest with me from the beginning. I started questioning everything about our relationship and her friendship with Chloe. I knew I had to confront my wife about Chloe's behavior and my own suspicions. I started replaying everything in my head. Was the incident in my bedroom really just an accident? Or was there something more to it? Even the kiss on the cheek, something that had always seemed so innocent, now seemed suspicious. The whole situation was making me incredibly uncomfortable. I didn't want to live in the same house with Chloe anymore, not with all this suspicion and uncertainty hanging over us. I started thinking about what I should do. Should I confront Chloe directly? Should I talk to my wife again? What were Chloe's intentions? I felt like I was walking on eggshells, and I didn't know who to trust anymore. The worst part was the feeling that my wife had betrayed my trust by keeping this information from me. It made me question everything about our relationship. I knew I couldn't let this fester any longer. I had to talk to my wife. So, I sat her down and told her how uncomfortable I was with Chloe's behavior, especially the kiss. I told her that it felt different now, knowing what I knew about Chloe's past. My wife listened to my concerns. She didn't get defensive, which I appreciated. She said she understood why I was upset and that she should have been more honest with me from the beginning. I pressed her for more answers. What did she think Chloe was doing? Did she know anything about Chloe's intentions? My wife hesitated, but then she told me something that made the whole situation even more complicated. She said that she thought Chloe might have a bit of a crush on me. She said that Chloe had always admired our relationship and saw me as a model husband, especially compared to the men she had been with in the past. This revelation hit me hard. It explained a lot, but it also made me feel incredibly uncomfortable and confused. I was angry, hurt, and confused all at the same time. I couldn't believe that this was happening in my own home, with my wife's best friend. We talked for a long time about what to do. We considered confronting Chloe directly, but we were worried about how she would react. We also didn't want to make things even more awkward or cause a rift between her and my wife. In the end, we decided to take a more subtle approach. My wife agreed to talk to Chloe about appropriate behavior and boundaries. She would try to do it in a way that wouldn't make Chloe feel uncomfortable or attacked, but that would make it clear that her behavior was not okay. The conversation with Chloe was a bit awkward, but it seemed to go okay. Chloe didn't say much, but she seemed to understand. Things were still a little tense in the house for a while, but gradually, things started to return to normal. Chloe's behavior towards me changed. She was more reserved, and the overly friendly gestures stopped. However, the whole experience left a mark on our relationships. My trust in my wife had been shaken. I couldn't help but wonder if she was still keeping things from me, and I had lingering doubts about Chloe's intentions. Our marriage went through a rough patch. We had to work hard to rebuild trust and communicate more openly with each other. My relationship with Chloe also changed. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. There was a lingering awkwardness and suspicion that I didn't know how to overcome. The whole situation also affected my wife's friendship with Chloe. They were still close, but things were different. There was a distance between them that hadn't been there before. Looking back, I realized that the whole experience taught me a lot about relationships, trust, and boundaries. I learned the importance of open and honest communication, even when it's difficult. I also learned that sometimes, even the people you trust the most can keep secrets from you, and that those secrets can have a profound impact on your life. I often wonder what would have happened if I had acted differently. What if I had told my wife about the incident right away? What if I had confronted Chloe directly? Would things have turned out differently? But I also know that dwelling on the what-ifs doesn't change anything. I've come to accept that relationships are complex and messy, and that sometimes, you just have to navigate difficult situations the best way you can. As for Chloe, I hope she's doing well. I hope she's learned from her past mistakes and that she's able to find happiness and build healthy relationships in the future. The whole experience was a difficult one, but it ultimately made me stronger and more aware. It taught me valuable lessons about trust, communication, and the importance of setting boundaries in all my relationships.